Alright, so to get started, we're doing differential rules with tables. So exciting. And, okay, so the question asks, given h of x, it equals f of x plus g of x, and it's asking us to find h prime of 1. So to start out, we're just going to find h of 1, which we'll go back to our table and we'll say, okay, when x is 1, f of x is 2. And so we go to the second part of the problem, g of x. So when x is 1, g of x is 1 also, or 1. The next step is to find prime of h of 1. So we go prime of f of x is 1 plus the prime of g of x is 2. And then from here it's just basic math and 3. So h prime of 1 equals 3.
So on number 2 it says given h of x equals f of x minus g of x, find h prime of 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to say h2 equals f of x, so your x is 2, and you're going to find it, so it's 1, minus, and then you're going to go to g of x, 2. And then now you're going to go to your blue sheet and you're going to use the rule number 2, the same one as we did on number 1, and it says d over dx u plus or minus v equals u prime plus or minus v prime. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to take f of x, or f prime of x for 2, and that's 1/2. And then you're going to do minus the v prime, so g prime of x for 2, and it's 1, and you're going to get negative 1/2.
Okay, so next we have number 3, which we're told that given h of x, this equals f of x times g of x, and it's asking us to find h prime of 3. So our first step will be to find h of 3. Oh, that's really small. H of 3, which we know that when x is 3, f of x is 3. And g of x, when x is 3, is 1. So before we go any further, we're going to identify what u and v are, because we're going to be using product rule, which is rule number 3 on your blue chart. So we know that f of x is u, and g of x is v. And so we're going to label our table 2 so we don't get confused. This is u, this is u prime, this is v, and this is v prime. Okay, so our product rule tells us that h prime of 3, this is our formula, is u of v prime plus v of u prime. Okay, so now we're just going to fill in our formula. H prime of 3 equals 3 times v prime, which is negative 2, plus v, and u prime, which is 2. So from here, it's just basic math, and h prime of 3 equals negative 6 plus 2. And then now we know that h prime of 3 equals negative 4.
Okay, so for number 4, it says given h of x equals f of x over g of x, find h prime of 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to have h of 3, and then we're just going to plug it in. So f of x is 1 over g of x, it's 2. Now, before we go any farther, we're going to just label our numbers so we don't get confused like we did on number 3. So this is u. This is u prime. This is v. And this is v prime. This is u. And this is v. Okay, and our rule says d dx u over v. And that equals v u prime minus u v prime over v squared. Now we're just going to plug in our numbers. So for our v, it's 2. And then for our u, it's -1. And then we're going to do minus, and then for our u, it's -1. And then for our v prime, it is 1. And then that's all going to be over 2. And then you square that. And then I'm going to move this over here. So then what you're going to do is you're just going to do basic math. So it's -2 minus 1 all over 4. And then you're going to get h prime of 3 equals -3/4.
Okay, so we're going to be starting on part 1, and it's telling us that given h1 of x equals f of x plus g of x, find h1 prime of 2. So our first step is we're going to label. We know that this is u and this is v. So I'm going to label the table too. This is u. This is u prime. This is v. And this is v prime. Okay, so first step's going to be h1 prime of 2. We're going to find out what h1 of 2 is. So h1 of 2 equals, when x is 2, f of x is 4. And we're adding. And then g of x, when x is 2, is 3. Okay, so our chart tells us that we're going to be using rule 2, which it tells us that d over dx u plus or minus v equals u prime plus or minus v prime. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find u prime and v prime. So when x is 2, f of x prime is -1. This is equal to h prime of 2. Okay, g of x when x is 2, g prime of x when x is 2 is plus 3 over 2. Okay, so now it's just basic math. H, it's a 1. 1 prime of 2 equals 1 half.
So part 2 says given h2 of x equals f of x minus g of x. Find h2 prime of 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to find h2 of 3. So f of x is 3 minus g of x is 4. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our chart that we've been using. And we're going to use the same rule that we just used for part 1. So h2 prime of 3 equals f prime of x is -1. And then minus g of x, g prime of x is 1. So our answer comes out to be -2.
Okay, so now we're going to be working on part 3, and first things first, we'll label that this is u, and this is v. First step is to find out what h3 of 4 is. So we're going to write h3 of 4. When x is 4, f of x is 2. And when x is 4, g of x equals 5. First things first, we're going to be writing down our rule. And unlike the other parts, we're going to be using the product rule, which is number 3 on your blue chart, which states that h3 prime of 4 equals uv prime plus vu prime. Alright, so we're just going to fill in what we know. h3 prime of 4, u is 2, g prime is 1, plus v is 5, and u prime is negative 1. Okay, so basic math. h3 prime of 4 equals 2 minus 5. And again, we now know that h3 prime of 4 is negative 3. Now we'll be working on part 4, and the first step is to label that this is u and this is v. Okay, so first steps is we have to know what h4 of 2 is. So h4 of 2, well, f of x when x equals 2 is 4. And g of x when x equals 2 is 3. So using our formula chart and using the quotient rule, which is number 4, we know that h4 prime of 2 equals vu prime minus uv prime over v squared. So plugging in what we know that h4 prime of 2, v is 3, write it down a little lower, and then u prime when it equals 2 is negative 1, minus 4 times v prime of 2 is 3 over 2. And this is all over v squared, which we know that v is 3, so 3 squared. So now it's just simple math, and we know that h4 prime of 2 equals negative 3 minus 6 over 9. And so now we know that h4 prime of 2 equals negative 1.
Okay, so for part 5 it says given h5 of x equals f of x squared. Find h5 prime of 2. So we're going to do h5 of 2. So our f of x when x is 2 is 4. And then we would have to square that. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to find h5 prime of 2. And we're going to use our chain rule. So what our chain rule says is n u n minus 1 u prime. So we're just going to go ahead and plug in what we know. So h5 prime 2. We're going to take our exponent, we're going to drop it down in the front. And then that's going to be 4. And then that's just going to be to the 1th power. We don't have to write that if we don't want to, but I'm writing it just so we know. And then u prime is negative 1. And then now it's just simple math. h5 prime of 2. And our answer is going to be negative 8. So part 6 says, given h6 of x equals f of g of x, find h6 prime is 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the chain rule, which says d over dx, u to the nth power equals nu n minus 1 u prime. So what we're going to do is there's a 1 out here, and we're going to bring it out to the front. So we're going to have h6 prime of 6 equals f prime g of x times g prime of x. And so we're just going to plug in what we know. h6 prime of 6 equals f prime, and then g of x is 4 times g prime of 6, or g prime of 6, and then h6 prime of 6 equals -1 times -2, and your answer comes out to be just regular 2. Okay, to get from this step to this step, when your x is 6, your g prime of x is -2.